Welcome to another edition of SKN Football Weekly. I'm your host, Andre Hewitt. It's been a while since we had a live show. We had a number of challenges over the last few weeks. Well, 1 week, actually, I was ill, so I had to take a break. And we'll be running some prepackaged shows for you each week. But we're happy to be back with you live and lively this week. And we're certainly looking forward to an exciting show. I'm joined by LaShawn Dixon. Well, not always, but most of the times I'm joined by LaShawn Dixon from the St. Kitts Nevis Observer as our co-host to sort of analyze the world of football in St. Kitts Nevis. We have him on the line. LaShawn, welcome. It's good to be back after such a long time.
Yes, I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to catch up on some of the football talk.
Definitely. Well, as always, we normally start off by getting the results or the highlights from the previous week. So we're going to go straight to that, and then we'll come back and we preview the games coming up this weekend. We have a lot of exciting games coming up this weekend. Marquee matches. We're at the business end of the season. As you know, we're getting closer to the playoffs, and so teams are going to be jostling for points. Teams are going to be trying to avoid relegation. So it's going to be a very, very exciting time. So let's go to the highlights from last weekend's Match Week 14, and then we'll come back to preview the games for Match Week 15.
Swings that one over, finds Brown looking for Hobson. And it's a penalty. A penalty is called. The whistle goes. Tikwani steps and puts it into the back of the net. Easy and simple. And it's 1-0 here in the 40. And Jardel Isaac fires and puts it in the net. Jardel Isaac with a rocket of a shot. The goalkeeper gets in his hand. Victory here once again.
Mitchum now. Mitchum looking for a cross. Mitchum puts it in! Oh my goodness! And on the end is Mr. Dorset. They switch places. Dorset is normally over on that wing. Well, comes a cross. Goalkeeper misses everything. He's still in the area, and he goes in the back of the net. And there's Hendrickson stuffing that one in the back of the net. So 2 headers and 2 goals for the Rockets. Roberts took the ball, coming out. Then he comes out wide to Williams. Williams back to Roberts. Roberts, taken down. Whistle goes and Mitchum leaves it for Lewis. Oh my gosh! Spanks it nicely. That is a training ground routine put to perfection. Perfectly executed by the Rockets. Goes through the line, finds Knight. Knight cuts. Knight with the cross. Oh my gosh! It's practice drills. Are we over in Keon? Because Keon are running practice drills and Williams.
But that pass not good. Sliding in Freeman, and Freeman with the only goal. That's the opening goal for St. Paul's. It's Keetwar Freeman, the usual suspect. He's on the top and in the forward position. He gets a pass. Strong tackle by Burke. Finds Daniel. Daniel continues to carry this one. Has Eddie. Slips to Eddie. Eddie is now goal side. And a good touch. And that's this equalizing goal from Sandy Point. Eddie. Beautiful football between him and Daniel. He held off the defender. And he slid that one past Hodge. Sandy Point. Against the run of play. It's 1-1 here. By Darren. Yes, it is. Into the 18-yard area. Alves gets his head on it. Zawick was trying to clear. Dequan Hamilton puts in a good ball. And that's the... Oh my goodness. It's always going to be Keetwar Freeman. It's always going to be Keetwar Freeman. 2 goals to 1.
Plays it back for Till. Till fires and Keonjay not able to hold on. As we see Rocco Brown and Shaquille Bazi racing in for the rebound. And it seems as if Rocco Brown got it first and put it into the back of the net here in the 30 on a cross. Getting a second bite. Errol O'Loughlin up and puts it into the back of the net. Errol O'Loughlin all alone on the back post. Rising above everyone. Kilbazi getting behind, putting it across. And Joseph puts it into the back of the net. Joseph sneaking in, getting away from Dequan Watley. And Joseph getting the go-ahead goal here for St. Peter's here in the 84th minute of play. Looking to get through, playing through that one for Joseph. Joseph puts it into the back of the net. Joseph sneaking through again. Lovely ball there by Tyrrell. Finding Joseph. And Joseph getting the double.
All right, so here we go now with the match week 15, and it promises to be exciting. We've seen games coming up on Saturday, March 14th at 4 p.m. Village Superstars, Rangeley Superstars versus Sandy Point FC. That game is at 4 p.m. Of course, all games at the National Bank Group Technical Center in St. Peters. Then we have Diet Bay versus Connery FC. That's TG Diet Bay Eagles versus Sol Island Auto Supplies Connery FC at 6 p.m. And to end the triple header on Saturday at 8 p.m., it's the league leaders. Now, this one is a doozy. The league leaders, MSCR All Road United Jets, yet to lose a match. The only blemish they have is a draw that they had earlier in the season at the start of the year, but they have not lost a single game after 14 matches. They are unbeaten. They're at the top of the table. They face Honda Newtown United at 8 p.m. That's on Saturday. Then on Sunday, we see Tropical Blossom Hot Spring Band United in relegation zone. They need to get out of that situation. They really need 3 points right now. They're going to be facing Azul Cairn Rockets. That's a huge test for them. That's at 4 p.m. And then at 6 p.m. to end off match week 15 will be defending champions SL Horses St. Paul's United versus Development Bank St. Peter's FC. That one promises also to be a very exciting one as well. So we're going to be talking with LaShawn Dixon about these two games, because obviously these are huge matches coming up this weekend. So LaShawn, quickly, if we could look at the first match, Rangeley Superstars versus Sandy Point FC. That is at 4 p.m. tomorrow. Rangeley Superstars versus Sandy Point FC. Now, these are clearly two big matches. How do you see these two games panning out in terms of, well, this game rather panning out for both teams, as both teams are certainly in desperate need of points. Well, Sandy Point maybe more so than Village. Village, they're thereabouts in the playoff running, but of course they would certainly want to win this game. Your thoughts on that match?
Well, it's a big match for both sides. Sandy Point definitely needing the points to move out of the relegation zone, while Village Superstars, on the other hand, need the points to get back into the top four. They currently sit at 6, while Sandy Point find themselves at 9th in the relegation zone, 1 point behind the Eagles. So it's a big match. It's a big 6-pointer for both sides. It's a must-win for both sides almost, but for different reasons.
Yeah. Let's start with Village. They certainly have had a stop-start season. They've had a mixed bag, so to speak, and they were in the top 4 for most of round 1, for all of round 1 actually, and they too, despite the fact that they had points deduction, they certainly were in the mix. But the last few games, they haven't quite put it together. What is it, do you think, that's causing Village not to be able to have that, that consistency that they need?
Well, they started the season well. In the first round, as you said, they were in amongst the teams, despite the points deduction. They were in amongst the top 4 teams. At one point, I think they were in second place before Newtown went on the run. So they definitely would be disappointed with their current situation. But as we've been saying in this podcast for some time, is that since the turn of the year, Rangeley Superstars, they have been a mixed bag, and we've spoken multiple times of teams being inconsistent, and they were graduated or demoted, however you want to look at it, into one of the teams that have been very inconsistent for this season thus far. They currently sit at 19 points. They're 3 points off of St. Peter's and Cairn, who are in 4th and 5th respectively. So they definitely need this victory tomorrow to move back into playoff contention, and they also will need other results to go their way.
All right. Now, Sandy Point, as you said earlier, they do need to get points on the board. They are in the relegation zone. They've managed to work themselves up a point different. They're now 7 points. So they've moved from the bottom of the table with that draw against St. Peter's. That, however, though, must have hurt them because they were leading for most of the match. And St. Peter's coming back in the final few minutes to find the equalizer. Your thoughts on that particular game?
Yes, and the same thing happened again last week where they were drawing with St. Paul's, and a draw in that game that took them over the relegation.
Yes, St. Paul's. The week before was St. Peter's, yes, you're correct.
Yeah, so last week the game against St. Paul's took them out the relegation zone and goal difference ahead of the Eagles. But now they find themselves back in the relegation zone, and as I said, the game against St. Peter's, where they should have taken on 3, they had to settle for a point, but a big point. Nevertheless, they're now in 9th position. They're still in it. Only 2 out of those bottom 3 could go down, but they're still in it. And as I said earlier, this is a big game for them as well as for Ramsbury Superstars. So it's a game we really want to miss.
Indeed, I don't think anybody would want to miss that game. It's the first match of the weekend, the first match from match week 15. It's Ramsbury Superstars versus St. Kitts Concrete Masters Sandy Point FC. All right, let's move to the second match at 6 p.m. We have TGE Deer Bay Eagles. They're taking on Saul Island Auto Supplies Connery FC. Let's start with Deer Bay. They are certainly one of the surprise package, newly promoted team. They're out of the relegation zone, but only by a point. And certainly it is one of those teams that you ask yourself, okay, they're playing with danger because they're just above the relegation zone. They're not getting good results. They did, however, picked up 3 valuable points early in the season, which has put them in a position where they are on the outside looking in, not intending to go back in there. But considering again that they're sort of dangling above the relegation zone, how important it is for them to try to get something out of this game this weekend?
Well, it's a big opportunity for them because the Connery side, they are not in form, so it's an opportunity for the Eagles to try and get some points on the board, even 1 point. And as you see how tight this is down there with the bottom 3 teams, a point could be like goal. So it's critical for them to come and show their best performance. And for me, they has competed in games for the most part this season. It's just that they haven't done so for long enough to remain in games. Because even the game against Cairn, I think they played a good 15 minutes, but then after Cairn got the goal, it's like they lost hope. So they need to be able to play, to remain in games for much longer, especially against the teams at the top of the table who are fighting for positions in the playoffs and otherwise. Connery is a good opportunity for them to try and take some points off a struggle so that they're not a Connery.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Connery now, since you just brought that up. They have certainly had a horrid start to round 2. Round 1, they were in the mix. They were in the top 4. They were in and about. Now they are miles off, and it's going to take a Herculean effort from them and also mistakes from the other teams above them to drop points in order for them to have a chance to get to the playoffs. This was a team that a season ago, just last season, they were just a few minutes away from making it to the finals. Had Village Superstars not scored those goals, or rather, I think it was St. Paul's, had they not scored those goals against their opponent in the Final Four, they could have been playing Connery in the finals. Now, we see a situation where they may not even make the playoffs with just a few more games to go. What went wrong for Connery in round 2 this season?
I guess a lot has gone wrong for them. The last 2 games I've seen them, they had an outfield player in goal. They've not had a backup goalkeeper this season, so that has been a struggle for them. Some games I've seen them, they've had a very thin bench where they struggle to even get 3 players on their bench, so that's another issue for them. But as I said, Connery will be disappointed with where they are. They started the season, they were in amongst it with the likes of St. Peter's and Cairn. We were saying that they were one of the more inconsistent teams, but since the turn of the year, maybe a little after, definitely in the second round though, they have struggled and they have found themselves in a position where there could be what we call no man's land if they don't turn around their fortunes quite quickly, because I don't think they're fit for relegation, but they could be cut adrift from the teams fighting for the top four.
Yeah, but that would certainly be a disappointing season for them, considering the season they had just almost a year ago. So interesting to see what will become of them. So that game is going to be TGE Debe Eagles versus Sol Island Auto Supplies Connery FC. That game is going to be at 6 p.m. The second of the doubleheader, playing at the National Bank Group Technical Center. All right, so let's take now a look at the third game coming up. It is MSCR Old United Jets, the league leaders, versus Honda Newtown United. Now that is certainly going to be the match of the week. It's certainly going to be a huge game. LaShawn, you would imagine that probably you could argue that it could be the game of the week. That's number one versus number two. Old Road having a phenomenal season, yet to lose a match. Talk us through, man. I had a talk with the coach, and we probably will share that report a little later and share a snippet of the interview I had with him, Coach Alexis Morris of Old Road. Essentially, he said that the preseason preparation they've had certainly is the main reason why they're having the phenomenal season they've had so far. Not losing a game, the only blemish you could say was just dropping up 2 points at the start of the year in their first match of the year. But after that, it has been smooth sailing before and after. Your thoughts on Old Road's phenomenal season?
Well, I'm a bit as far as to how they have been performing this season. Tiquani Williams definitely has been the best player in the Premier Division this season. He is leading the goal and
he's the leading goal scorer. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and he even beyond that, he is proven to be the main catalyst behind Old Road's success. And when we look at the numbers, they've scored the most goals in the league. 7 above Newtown, who they play next, and they've conceded the less goals in the league. They only conceded 10 goals in 14 games. Most teams would accept that any day of the week. So they have been far and away the best team this season, and they look very, very indomitable. Hopefully for them, it could go on, and that town could carry on to the playoffs and they bring home their first Premier Division title.
Absolutely. They are a phenomenal side. They've been playing exceptionally well. But they're up against a Newtown team that is also consistent. They've been playing well as well. Of course, the thing that we've said on this show since the start of the season, the only Achilles heel for Newtown is their defense. And we saw that in the St. Paul's game that they played a couple of weeks ago. Do you think they'll be able to show up and try to be the first team to take some points? Well, not just to take points, but to actually beat Old Road tomorrow?
Yeah, and if there's one team in the league who should be able to do it, will be this Newtown team, who's looked very well, and when you compare them to the Old Road side, they've scored the second most goals. They're 7 goals behind the Old Road side, but it's on the other side, goals against, where they conceded 26 goals, and for perspective, Connery, as we said, they're struggling. They don't even have a goalkeeper for the last few weeks. Connery has conceded 30 goals in the same 14 games. So for Newtown, that probably would be the area of concern. But in the last few games, I've seen some improvement in that regard on the defensive side of the ball. So that's an area that they've improved in. But at the end of the day, they're playing the team who has scored the most goals, the team the most points thus far, and is set to get ding dong back in our showdown this weekend.
That indeed is true. We're certainly looking forward to that. All right, so at this point, we're going to take another quick break, and we're going to continue when we come back to look at the games on Sunday. We have 2 great games also on Sunday, but we're also going to use the time to take a look at what's happening in Division 1, because that also has a very interesting race going on for the title and for promotion. So we're going to play a report from the Escanife Division 1, the most recent report, recapping match week 13, which would have been last week. They had a game played last night. We'll give you the results for that in a bit. But here's this report on the Escanife Division 1 and the exciting race that's happening there. The promotion race in Escanife Division 1 has been blown wide open this weekend. While some title favorites stumbled, CIBC Village Galaxy made a massive statement at the Saddlers playing field. They put on a clinical display to defeat Trevor Freights and associate Molineux Pitbulls 3-1. David Kelly was the undisputed star of the match, netting a brace with strikes in the 22nd and the 72nd minute. Akane Francis scored also in the 12th minute, ensuring a dominant 3-1 victory. With this win, Village Galaxy is now breathing down the necks of leaders, sitting just 3 points away from clinching the league title. The door was left wide open for Galaxy after a series of mixed results from other promotion hopefuls throughout the week. In a high-scoring thriller on Friday, 607 Construction Launch Patriots failed to pick up points in their pursuit of the trophy, despite goals from Leon Huggins and Vince Roy Nelson. They fell 3-2 to a resilient Mantab side, who snatched the winner in the 88th minute. On Thursday, KFC Trinity Challengers United missed a crucial opportunity to keep pace at the top. They were edged down 2-1 by Security Forces United, leaving them empty-handed with a late goal surge by the Forces. Meanwhile, Fast Cash Mother Becky's Tea Saddlers United managed to avoid the upset, grinding out a narrow 2-1 win over Connery Fireballs to stay in the hunt alongside Galaxy. In the previous week result in the Escanife Premier League, Security Forces defeated Rivers of Living Water 2-1 at the Gardens playing field. After the match, we heard from Security Forces captain Shane Clark.
Well, today the team performed in the first half a bit shaky. Everybody was doing as they pleased, but second half I think we come out and try to execute the game plan a little bit better than the first half.
Right. And what will it take to continue to keep up the momentum for the rest of the league?
Training and consistency, because I mean, like, even though the team is in the rebuilding stage with the youth and so we try to instill in them that you got to come train, you got to perform during time, so at least we're in the first division, so we can't get demoted, but at least we know we can get promoted.
Right. What would be a successful season for you? I mean, far from promotion, but still, what would you measure as a good season for Security?
If not next year, the year after. As I said, we're in the rebuilding stage with the youth. This is like mostly we under 17 teams with like a 1-2 senior plus. So just for time to them to gel together, train, and then see what we could do next season. And if we get promoted next season, then the season after that.
We also heard from Rivers of Living Waters captain Darren Huggins.
The performance wasn't all too bad. Just the all up in the game. Sun, guys were tired, but fight was good still. We're still taking it out as they come, one by one. First round was some bad results, some big score line, but now you see a bit of improvement and so forth, so that's a plus. So you just gotta continue with any positive.
In other results from the previous week, Connery Fireball International fell to Mantab 4-1. Saddlers United were defeated by Lodge Patriots 3-1. Village Galaxy had won also the previous week, defeating KFC Trinity Challengers United 2-0, and the Garden Hotspurs and Molineux FC drew 2-2. And to take a look also at the other results, as we promised you, we have results in the Division 1 this week. Last night on March 12th at the Gardens, we had Skellig Garden Hotspurs. They defeated Mantab 3-0. That's a big result for Spurs, because with that win, that should take them to the top of the table, at least temporarily, because Lodge will be playing tonight. And so we'll look at the games later on in the show. We'll look at the games that will be played tonight. But that's a big result for Skellig Garden Hotspurs. And then we had Trinity Challengers, KFC Trinity Challengers United, one of the contenders and one of the teams that earlier up in the season was leading the table. They defeated Rivers of Living Waters FC 6-1. They've had mixed results of late, so this result certainly is a huge result for them. We'll see how that factors in by the end of this match week, this weekend, where that factors them in the table and in the discussions for promotion to the Premier League. All right, so we're back. We're going to be continuing our look at the Premier League. We have 2 more games to review or preview that's coming up this weekend. We have the games on Sunday. That's Bath United, Tropical Blossom Hot Spring Bath United versus Azul KM Rockets. That game is at 4 p.m. at the National Bank Group Technical Center. And that's followed by the SL Horses St. Paul's United, the defending champions, versus Development Bank St. Peter's FC. Now, LaShawn, these are 2 great games coming up as well. Let's start with Bath United versus Keon. Now, that game is very crucial, more so for Bath than for Keon. Keon probably could afford to drop some points, but they certainly are not on that road. They are playing exceptionally well over the last three match games. They've built a winning streak, and they're certainly gunning for that fourth spot in the playoff run. Bath United, on the other hand, in unfamiliar territory, since they got promotion back in 2020, they were one of the consistent teams, a mid-table team, a team that even was gunning for Super 6 playoff spot when we had Super 6. And at one point was looking that they could have qualified for Final Four. Now, they're staring down the barrel of relegation.
Yeah, and I know they'll be disappointed that of their current league position. They are a team who has become a staple here in the Premier Division. It's been tough for them this season. They've lost some big games, and they've lost some games by some very big scorelines, including last week against Newtown United, losing 8-0. So it's an area where they have to look at the way they concede goals and the amount of goals they concede, especially in a relegation battle that's quite close. You will want to get relegated and goal different, so that's an area they'll have to correct. And as we said for Sandy Point earlier, we can say the same for Bath. It's almost like a must-win because they need to start to get some points to ensure that they're not in the bottom two.
Yeah.
Good. Luckily for them, though, they would be able to see what Sandy Point and Gateway do on this Saturday, and then they are able to play after that.
Yeah. Why do you think this is so, though? I mean, this is a team, like I said, you gave a reason, at least, that they've lost some of their key players, and that could have played a role, but they still have some of the core, the central core players that have been with them for the past few seasons, players that have developed through their academy and have come through the senior ranks. So what else do you think is the reason for them not having to be able to gel with that core that they have?
I'm not too certain. I know they were missing some players to injury for most part of the season, and then to get a rhythm when they came back, the team were already in a funk, so it would have been difficult for them to build any momentum or rhythm this season. But as we said, it's that tight at the bottom that there's an opportunity for them to still remain in the league of themselves and the other two.
Yeah. Well, that game is up on Sunday. They're up against a Keon team that at this moment, LaShawn, is having a phenomenal second round. They had some mixed results towards the end of the first round. They came into the second round again with some mixed results, but then they found a groove, and for the past 3 games, they've been riding that groove pretty well. Keon obviously now are looking at this as a potential 3 points and something that they don't want to drop at this point.
Yes, and just like as really superstars, as we said, this is a must-win for Keon as well, because it's an opportunity for them to go ahead of St. Peter's, even if so temporarily as St. Peter's will be playing after, and put pressure on St. Peter's, who currently occupy the 4th spot. So it's a chance for Keon to a spot in the top 4. And as I said, they had a very inconsistent first round and start to the second round, but now we're seeing that they're showing some form and showing the caliber that we've come to know from Keon for the last 3 years. A perennial playoff contender, perennial championship contender. A team who usually starts out hot in the first round and then struggle in the second round. We've not seen that this season. This season we've seen a mixed bag from them, but they're thereabouts, and they have a good opportunity here to put some pressure on St. Peter's, who will be playing the defending champions later that day.
Indeed. And so that game is going to be at 4 p.m. on Sunday. A nice Sunday afternoon game for the fans to come out and see Bath United versus Keon Rockets. And finally, on the weekend, another big match, probably you could say the second big match of the weekend, is the defending champions SL Horses St. Paul's United versus Development Bank St. Peter's FC. Now, St. Paul's have had a phenomenal season so far. Starting off the season with the sanctions and the points deductions, it was an uphill battle for them. But look where they are now. They are in the playoff position. They're in number 3, and they're looking like they are ready to go straight to the playoffs. They're beginning to find their groove. Their suspended players are back. Keith Freeman picked up a brace on the weekend. He's now getting his goal scoring form. So clearly, things are on the up and up for St. Paul's. I've heard fans say, and I've seen fans say on social media, that if St. Paul's win the Premier League title, they should put them in another division, like they play the national team or something, because it's unreal for them to have the 6-point deduction at the bottom of the table, not losing, or I should say, some of their major star players to start the season due to suspension. And here they are on the cusp, on the eve of the regular season ending. They're right there in number 3. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and they've been impressive, more so since the suspended players have returned. They always seem to peak at the right time, and currently it seems like they're getting closer to their best football. And we know St. Paul's are one of the top teams, not even one of the top team in the league this season. And yes, they had sanctions where they lost 6 points earlier in the season, and without their players, ticklish for them not want to be in the relegation zone. But when we started this podcast a few weeks back, I remember saying never take care of St. Paul's, and when they get back their players, and if you look at the numbers, you realize that they've only conceded 12 goals in the 14 games thus far, and that's them going back to the roots. And we've seen Kito Ifeman in the last few weeks being able to find the back of the net, finding his goal scoring form again, and it's coming at a good time for the season. They look very comfortable now in the top 4. Unless they absolutely collapse come the end of the season, I think they will be joining Newtown and Oriole in the playoffs, and we know the same passes. You just can't take care of them. They know to win. They have the right mentality to get to win this competition. So it's something that we can't afford to take our eyes off.
And as you said, they've gotten back some of their senior players and their number 1 goalkeeper. So they've managed to maintain a good defensive record going into the end of their suspension, and their goalkeeper is back. So, and he was the Golden Glove winner last season. So you do expect some good things from St. Paul's. But let's talk about St. Peter's, because they too have had, like Keon, like other teams in the league, they've also had a mixed bag of results. Is this match coming at the right time? They seem to find a way to get themselves back into things. They've gotten some really crucial wins in some of their games. Can we say that St. Peter's are primed and ready to face a St. Paul's team that's on the up and up?
Well, for the last few weeks, they've looked a lot better than they did earlier in the season. They've gotten some big wins under their belt. They're now occupying the 4th position, the all-important 4th spot. So they will want to continue that. And as I said earlier, with Keon playing first, Keon has the opportunity to put pressure on St. Peter's. But it's at the moment it's in St. Peter's hands. If they were to win all their games for the rest of the season, they will be in the top 4, no doubts about it. It's in their hands. They have the opportunity to take playoff football away from Keon Rams with the superstars who are the chasing pack. So it's up to them at the end of the day to put in the performances. Against St. Paul's, it would be quite difficult because we know how good St. Paul's are. And as I said, the St. Paul's are peaking at the moment, but we can't discredit this St. Peter's team going forward.
All right, so those promises to be 2 exciting matches on Sunday to end out your match weekend, or your match week 15 weekend. The Premier League is certainly moving really, really fast. We're almost at the end of the regular season, just 4 more games, match weeks to go before the regular season ends. In between there, I should also let our fans know that the FA Cup schedule is out, and so that will be published on SKNFA social media in short order. So you'll see the games that are coming up. So there's going to be a little break, and we'll focus our attention on the FA Cup. But let's look again at match week 15 in the 2025-2026 National Bank Group SKNFA Premier League. Tomorrow, Saturday, March 14th at 4 p.m., it's Ramsville Superstars versus St. Kitts Concrete Masters, Sandy Point FC. At 6 p.m., it's TGE Debe Eagles versus Sol Island Auto Supplies Connery FC. At 8 p.m., it's MSCR Old Road United Jets, the league leaders, versus Honda Newtown United. Then on Sunday, we see Tropical Blossom Hot Spring Bath United versus Azul Cam Rockets at 4 p.m. And finally, at 6 p.m., SL Horses St. Paul's United versus Development Bank St. Peter's FC. These are all exciting games coming up in the National Bank Group SKNFA Premier League. Now, before we end the show, we got to also take a look at Division 1. There are two matches coming up this Friday evening at 6 p.m. at the Gardens playing field. It's CIBC Village Galaxy versus 607 Construction Launch Patriots, the league leaders. That's at 6. And then at 8 p.m., we have Connery Fireball International versus Elko Limited Security Forces United. Two great matches in Division 1. And in the report that we gave you earlier, you would have seen where we mentioned that the games are getting tighter in Division 1. We saw where teams, LaShawn, were leading. We have at least one team that was leading the table in KFC Trinity Challengers United at the start of the year. There was a lot of exciting talk about Trinity maybe finally earning promotion. Well, since then, since the start of the year, they've fallen off really badly. They've had some really bad results, a bad running of results, and they are now sitting outside of the top 2. But they're not too far away. They're still in touching distance. Anything can happen. They had a big win last night at the Gardens, so that puts them in a position where they can at least get back into the top 2. But they still have to now fight a newcomer. Well, I shouldn't say newcomer, but a team that we weren't talking about last year when we were talking about promotion. We were talking about Garden Hotspurs, Lodge Patriots, and there was a talk about Trinity Challengers. But we sort of ignored Village Galaxy. And now, with the good results we've had in recent and the fall off, they are in the running. So based on the table, now this table is going to be updated by the end of this match week. But they are right above there in the conversation about promotion, because they got a big win on the weekend and they got some good results. They won the week before. They actually defeated one of the contenders the week before, and they're up and about in the discussion about promotion. They're currently sitting at 3rd with 27 points. Now, this is after match week 13. Lodge Patriots still at the top at 30 points, and Garden Hotspurs were on 28. Now, Spurs are now leading because they won last night, and so they're now in the lead at least for 24 hours. We'll see what happens tonight when these two teams, Village Galaxy and Lodge Patriots, they're going to meet tonight at the Gardens. So now we're talking about 3, possibly 4 teams that could potentially earn promotion to the Premier League.
With Village Galaxy taking on the Lodge Patriots, that could be a big game in the context of the table, considering that Village Galaxy now part of the chasing pack. They could, a win tonight for them could definitely put them closer to the promotion places and set back Lodge somewhat. So that's something to keep your eye on.
Yeah. Well, if they win tonight, they would actually be in second. So they will have 30 points. They will tie on 30 points with Lodge Patriots. But Patriots have the higher goal difference by almost half, more than half. So I can't see Village Galaxy scoring 17, 18 goals against Lodge. Yeah. So we could safely say that if they were to win tonight, if Village Galaxy were to win tonight, they would be in second position, tied on points. Well, actually no, they'll be in third position, because Spurs is already in the top position right now, and maybe Spurs will then hold on to that top position as a result of Lodge losing, if Lodge were to lose tonight. So it's probably going to be it's going to be an exciting match tonight, Village Galaxy versus Lodge Patriots. We'll see how that works out. And of course, the second match, as we brought you, is going to be Connery Fireball International versus Security Forces. So we'll see how those two games go. So exciting times in Division 1, exciting times in the Premier League. It's just great football all around. Well, LaShawn, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to give you the final words on what we should look forward to this weekend.
Yeah, I just say come on out. There's some big games to be played across the Premier Division and Division 1. So I don't think football enthusiasts would want to miss these. And come on out and enjoy some local football.
All right. Well, on that note, Lushan, I want to thank you for joining us once again for Football Weekly, and hopefully we'll have another show next week. And of course, we will be looking ahead also to FA Cup when that comes up, when that time comes up. But again, thank you very much for taking the time out to be on the show this week.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And for you, the fans and the viewers, thank you so much for viewing and watching SKN Football Weekly, or weekly podcast, as we look ahead to the games in the Premier Division and the Division 1. And of course, we should also let you know that there are going to be games as well in the SKNFA Under 13 Boys League. You can visit the social media networks of the SKNFA, Instagram and Facebook, where you can see all those matches. And of course, to stay up to date with all that's going on in football, stay tuned as well, not just to the social media networks, but also the SKNFA website, sknfa.com. From all of us here at Football Weekly, I'm Andre Huey. I was your host. Thank you so much for joining us, and see you again next week for another edition of SKN Football Weekly.